Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 58 of the PTFooty podcast. I am joined today by Sam
Hello.
and Jamie.
Hi there.
I want to start off by saying that this is going to be probably Sam's last episode for the next 4 weeks.
3.
Three. Okay, so there you go.
Actually, yeah, 3. It's 3.
Yeah, maybe he might still join us. We don't know yet, but maybe. I want to start off the podcast a little bit differently. Jamie, I want you to tell our fans a little bit more about yourself and what you do, because I know you cover Portuguese football. So how that came about and all that.
Yeah, so I work for a company called Football Radar, which is based in London. We're a sort of data analysis company that serves a wide range of varying clients, and basically we watch and analyze football from all over the world. I think we do about 70 leagues worldwide, something like that. And yeah, I joined in summer of 2014, and shortly after that, I was you get put in charge of a certain league, and I was put in charge of the Portuguese division, and I've been doing that ever since, and it's quickly become my favorite European league. My job is to basically alongside another analyst, we share the league. So I'm responsible for half of the teams, and he's responsible for the others. And it's basically we watch every single game they play and analyze every player, and basically a lot of it's research and keeping up to date with transfer news and that sort of thing.
All right. And I mean, I gotta ask you because last week we had Jan at Portal Ball on, and I asked him, a few players that he thought could, make the jump, or guys that could surprise us from, quote unquote smaller teams. And I'm asking you the same thing since you spent, so much time watching a lot of teams. Who are some guys that you think are ready for, the big three, or a Braga, Guimarães, or maybe even a move, elsewhere?
Yeah, well, I think out of some of the smaller teams, certainly one that kind of jumped out a bit last season. Funnily enough, he is on loan from Benfica, but it's Pedro Nuno from Tondela, who Benfica signed him from Academica late December, I think it was last season. Just instantly loaned him to Tondela, and he sort of struggled a little bit to start with, but basically, the form he showed in the last stages of the season, helping them escape relegation, was fantastic. In particular, I think it was the penultimate game of last season, and then they beat Aruca 2-1, and Nuno scored twice, 2 great goals as well, and that was a must-win game, and ended up obviously relegating Aruca, so in an interesting twist. So I think he's definitely they've sent him on loan again for recall him, but I guess they've seen that he's sort of developing and progressing quite nicely. He's still only 22, and technically wise, he's the potential to really kick on if he can have another good season with Tondela. I don't see why he can't follow a similar trajectory to similar players. I think the other example that sticks out for me, again a lot on loan from a big team, is Uri Medeiros, who I think a lot of people will. I think a lot more people around Europe will start to sort of know who he is in the coming seasons, because he was definitely one of the best players in the league last season, as far as I'm concerned, on loan at Boavista, who I think it was their best finish, best league finish in 15 years or something like that.
Yeah.
They had a really good season, and he was center of it, and it's not surprising Jesus has recalled him. So I'm hoping for Sporting he gets a decent chance this year, because he's, again, in terms of pure technical ability, there's not many players better than Yuri in the league for sure.
All right, and one more thing that I want to ask you, and I know you like Tondela a lot, so a lot of we
Yeah,
have a lot of Americans obviously listening in, and we saw some rumors that Benfica had rejected an offer for Jean Mourinho from I think it was Columbus Crew. What do you think of him? Because he seems like an interesting player. Because he always scores against Sporting
yeah.
for some reason, and he plays well in big games. I'm kind of 50-50 on that because as a Benfica fan, I kind of want to see him play in our team, but at the same time, wouldn't sell him on a would it be better to sell him on and get a big profit?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because again, a bit like what Pedro Nuno is going to do now, and he did 2 years with Tondela in a row on loan. In that first season, I thought he was just a bit too inconsistent. I mean, it's always going to be tough, joining a team and playing in a team like that that's just come up and very small resources, and the general quality is nowhere near that of the bigger teams, obviously. But last season he was a lot more consistent, quite adaptable as well. He was, generally speaking, he's best on the wings, but sort of especially towards the end of the season when Pepper took over, he sort of started to drift a bit more centrally, and he was really good in the run as well, and was definitely one of their better players. In terms of going to Benfica, I'm not sure. Personally, from what I've seen, I'm not sure he's perhaps quite good enough for that level. So, presumably, if the offer was good enough, I think he's a good player that needs to be playing regularly, and if it's anything like the past couple of years, the wing positions for Benfica are always so congested. So, to be honest, I'd struggle to see him making an impact at Benfica, but I think he's a really good player, though.
All right, that's a fair point. Sam, do you think there's anything we should ask him?
No, I think you got it all covered. To be honest, like obviously, I like hearing about players outside the big three, because for me, obviously, I'm not anything like a journalist or anything like that. I just watch sporting because that's what I've been brought up to support. But it's always interesting hearing from other people about players that don't play for Benfica or Sporting. So
yeah, I think that's been the most interesting part of doing this over the past few years, is that I've always been familiar with the big three, from watching football from a very young age, and you always knew a lot of their players and knew their backgrounds, and when you watch the national team, you know that they played for Porto and Benfica and Sporting, but beyond that, I had sort of very very little knowledge of the rest of the division, and to learn about them and see some of the players that get unearthed at some of these smaller teams. I mean, Diogo Jota's probably the current and most prime example. Not a lot of people that have heard or know too much about Passos, where he's sort of really developed. So getting to watch him play in those kind of formative years, and then seeing where they end up. Obviously, I didn't expect it to be Wolves, but yeah, that's a real thrill to see, to have seen, these players when they were younger, and sort of, me and my colleagues have picked these guys out and said, we think these guys could be really good, and then sort of see that come to fruition. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's really rewarding. I can tell you that much. All right, so I think we can move on after I ask you these questions. So I also, I also asked Jan what team he thought would be the best dark horse, quote unquote, to reach Europe. And I've been doing a small series where I talk about a team, and I look at their previous squad, how their season went, and how their squad is looking right now. And I was really surprised to look at Vitória Setúbal's side because on paper, right now, they look very solid to me, and I wouldn't be surprised if they finished the sixth or seventh this year.
Yeah, yeah, they are. They're assembling a decent side for sure. I think they're a team that I think it was in 14-15 season. They looked like they were sort of in that zone. Pushing for Europe, and they had some good players, but they've just really struggled in the past couple of years. Particularly, I mean, they really suffered with the loan system, with the loan agreements with Sporting in the past couple of years. 15-16, they lost Ruben Semedo when he was playing so well for them. We got recalled by Sporting, and then there was that fallout last year, which saw them lose Ryan Gould and Geraldez, who was sort of becoming quite key players in that team. But no, on paper their squad looks good. I like Willian a lot. Um, I think he's a good player. He was definitely one of Nacional's best players in what was a really bad year for
Yeah.
them last year. Yeah,
So
and João Teixeira, I think, is a really interesting signing because he had
yeah,
a couple of strange, sort of
see,
very bad spells in England. So yeah, be interesting to see how he gets on.
yeah. So are there your team, or do you have another team? I mean, obviously, a lot of people are gonna say Shabs, right? But I mean,
Yeah, well, to be honest, I would say mine would be Desportivo Aves. I think I've been talking to a few guys on Twitter and about them. I think for me, I think they're the dark horse of the season. The
that's a good
squad
shout.
the squad they've assembled is really sort of. I mean, they've basically completely torn up the squad that got them promotion. They've got Ricardo Suarez in. He's come in, and yeah, the squad, it looks so deep and so sort of packed with proven players at that top level. Um, got Salvador Agra, who I think is a really good addition. Bruno Braga was really good last year for Chavez. Vitor Gomes is a really solid addition as well. Nildo from Moreirense and Washington is
Ryan Gold.
Ryan Gold, yeah, which just happened a couple of days ago. Which as from a sort of British perspective, if you like, I'm hoping, I'm rooting for him, hoping he can sort of finally make an impact, because he was doing really well at Setúbal last year before he got recalled. But I think this could be a really good Nelson Lenyo as well from
Oh,
Chavez as well is, I
that's pretty
think,
good.
the best signing, to be honest, because I think he was one of the definitely one of the best defenders in the league last season. I think it was brilliant.
All right. I think that's pretty fair, and I think that was a good one. That was a good shout. I don't think anybody else would have said that. So appreciate it. All right. Before we get into the actual games, there's something that Sam sparkled on Twitter. And Sam, do you mind telling us what that was?
Yeah, so a presenter on Sporting TV was talking about the Benfica players flopping in terms of success when they leave Benfica and go to another team, and he brought up the obvious what's the word I'm trying to think of here? Obvious argument that it's about the corruption stuff. Not obvious argument, but you know what I'm trying to say. The obvious. Someone help me out here.
What the obvious? What do you mean? Like the players
Not
are
like
struggling when they move from Benfica to other teams? What?
okay, because he brought up it's because of the corruption and
Oh,
they because
so
they look so good.
what it's trying to say is that a player looks completely different. He looks world class when in reality he's just poor.
Because he said because Benfica, his words, the rest always wear the red cape, which makes the Benfica players look better. But when they go to another country, and he used the example of Valencia taking Enzo Perez, Cancelo, Rodrigo, them players, and them being awful as they go to Valencia. But that I tweeted that out as a joke, saying I agree with this guy 100%, not on the corruption part, but just because Benfica have a lot of players who seem to be really good in this league and then flop. But I wanted to talk about just in general from the big three and even from the smaller teams, why players come from this league and flop it wherever they go. And especially in the recent times, there's plenty of examples you can think of.
Yeah, that's what I was
three.
gonna say. Let me try and think. Jackson Martinez,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's one. Danilo. I don't care what people say. He flopped. He flopped. I mean, he didn't play at Madrid. I don't care. I mean, he had high expectations. They bought him for like 30
in
million.
fairness to him, it's because Carvajal is such a good right back. Probably one of the best, if not the best in the world.
Yeah, but what you know from what most people say is that he struggled every time he got on the pitch.
I guess. Yeah.
So it's not,
Yeah.
So, all right. So there's.
I suppose if he was a success, then Real Madrid wouldn't have wanted to sell him. I suppose, but yeah, I agree. I agree that Carvajal has been so good. I think that's part of the reason. But yeah, from what I've heard and seen, I haven't seen him play too much. I think he did kind of struggle. I think it's just a lot of the time. I think it's just as simple as the step up is just a bit too large. The step up in quality, the pressure, the extra pressures that come on you, the higher quality of defenders that you come up against or attackers if it's a defender moving. I think what the example that springs to mind for me, and he hasn't failed by any means, but is Nico Gaitan. And I think what's interesting is with him is that he was for me. I think he was the best player for Benfica. I think he was even above Jonas and people like that in those title winning seasons, because he made the team tick. Everything sort of creatively came through him, and the fans and the team looked to him. He was the number one guy, and then he comes to Atletico, which is a great move, great club, but he's just a squad player really, and that's nothing against Gaitan. It's just the competition he didn't really have any competition at Benfica, but the competition is so strong when you make that step up. Sometimes they kind of get a bit lost in the wilderness a bit. I still think Gaitan can be a success there, but he's just got so much stiffer competition.
Yeah. So also more players. There's.
I was just going to say before you carry on with your list that
I'd say Slimani and Joel Marti. There you go. So the two that you pointed out.
Okay. I was just going to say I don't think a player has had the success of an outfield player coming from the Portuguese league since Nemanja Matic, in my opinion, since he left Benfica to go to Chelsea. And even people say that Nemanja Matic, obviously, if you're keeping up with the English side of football, you know that he's been rumoured to go to lots of different clubs. But I think a lot of people rate him as a really good holding midfielder. So, and when you think about all the other names who have left past that, obviously just outfield players, because you still got Oblak, who is one of the best goalkeepers in the world. But there hasn't been many players from the Portuguese league that have had a massive step up in other leagues.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you had.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. Well, I suppose of that era as well, you had one interesting one was David Luiz, and it's his sort of his path has been very interesting in the sense that earned a lot of criticism at Chelsea, very inconsistent. Went to PSG, and pretty much exactly the same. And then he's come back to Chelsea, which I think a lot of people were very surprised about. But by all accounts was brilliant last season and showed why they brought him back. So yeah, it's interesting you say. I think I agree with the shout on Oblak. I think he's Europe and maybe even a little bit underrated.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But yeah, it's interesting. Luiz is probably a unique example. But yeah, Matic definitely improved, I think, as a player when he initially left.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I just don't know, because we'll look at some of these guys, and it's hard to understand why they flop. I mean, especially when you look, and I'm just going to give you the three that from top of my head. Enzo, Rodrigo, and Romario, to me, are three names that I just don't understand, because Enzo is a complete beast in the midfield, right? I mean, I think everybody can agree that he's probably, when he was at Benfica, probably one of the best box-to-box midfielders, and I don't think that's saying, too much. I think that that he is that caliber of a player. And when you look at Rodrigo, he was very solid striker. I mean, you have that one Caesar wonder question mark in there, I suppose. But then you also have Romario, who was solid in several positions for several years, which just doesn't make it. It's hard for me to get a grip of why players flop that way. I think, to me personally, it's just like a minutes, because the quality is there, and I don't think that our league is so inferior to others that the drop off is that significant. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think Jean Mario was an interesting one because yeah, definitely had his by far his best season in his last season with Jesus, and I was always a bit skeptical about him going to Italy. I think maybe the difference in style perhaps was maybe a bit too stark between the leagues. Got a lot more freedom in Portugal. Jesus had kind of adapted him to right wing, but he was able to drift in field and support Slimani. Whereas I think tactically it's a bit more rigid in Italy and into a very sort of, I think, very very up and down last year anyway, which didn't help. But yeah, it didn't seem a move particularly suited to a player of his particular skills, to be honest. So I'm not hugely surprised he struggled in that first year.
To that point as well.
What about the other two? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that not only did João Mario lead that Sporting team last summer, it was also Slimani. And there were two players that were vital to Sporting's second place finish in 2015-16. And now you look at them, they both struggled. Slimani for Leicester, and obviously you mentioned João Mario for Inter Milan. But people still say that the reason Sporting struggled last year is because we didn't have those two players. Maybe not much as Slimani as Bastos to come most of the work, but João Mario is a big one that I think every Sporting fan felt that we missed out on that caliber of player. But then when you look at people that watch him, I've seen a few games at Inter Milan, and I obviously saw that he wasn't the player he was. But how can someone, in my opinion, that was vital to the Sporting teams suddenly go down to a sort of a bench player for another team? Not disrespecting Inter Milan, but they're not the force they once were, and they don't have the the caliber of players they once had. So especially with João Mario being, I think everyone can agree he's a very good player. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it was he left and Gelson came in and obviously has done fantastically and gives the team a different dynamic. But yeah, I mean, him and João Mario so different that I think it took Sporting a bit of time to adapt. Obviously, Bastos took a little bit of time to settle. He only really sort of showed his top form in the second half of the season, and yeah, it's strange. I don't know whether the players are either badly advised or if they're not advised at all. It's sort of mainly in the hands of the agents. Why João Mario would go to Inter, I'm not really sure, but yeah, there definitely seem to be quite a few cases of these players leaving Portugal and struggling.
Yeah.
All right, but can we talk about Enzo and Rodrigo though? Because I think those two, like I said, two cases that to me I just find weird that they flopped. I mean, the way that they did.
I
And I
think
know
it's
Rodrigo
just
can still turn it around, by the way. But
the Valencia is over the last couple of years have been a very poor run club, and I think maybe the management and the tactics. Gary Neville was their manager. Just to put that in perspective, no wonder they had such a bad season. But with the ins and outs of managers, where it's like when Enzo could finally adjust to a Valencia system, a new manager comes in and changes it all around. And I think that's where Enzo struggled a bit. I'm not too fond of Rodrigo. I haven't watched a lot of him when he was at Valencia. I'm not sure he's still there right now, to be honest. But for Enzo Perez, that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I agree with the standpoint about the club itself. I think it's been really badly run. They've sort of gone through quite a few well documented troubles, and the fans have been pretty angry from what I gather. And it's yeah. I mean, like you say, the Gary Neville example is proof enough of how sort of into the ground the club has gone, which is a real sort of former great team from the early 2000s in particular. So it's not an ideal environment because, as you say, Enzo Perez was an excellent player for Benfica. So it seemed, I guess on paper, it seemed like a natural fit to join the Spanish league and a team that sort of plays decent football like Valencia. But yeah, that environment to come into must have been sort of made it very hard to settle.
yeah, so I guess we're gonna settle that some of the moves are questionable, and most of the players didn't achieve their heights because they're just lack of time and a lot of managerial changes. Is that what we're gonna stick with?
Yeah, I think that there's a few factors. I mean, everything's so much more short term in football these days. When if you don't do it in the first, your first season, often you're up for sale. I'm sure there's probably a lot of Inter fans that probably wouldn't mind João Mario being sold, but they haven't had the sort of time, or he hasn't been able to settle to show what kind, how good he can really be. So you don't have these days. You don't really have very long at all to settle, and you don't have many chances. So if you kind of get off to a rocky start, you're sort of playing catch up straight away. But these players have shown at their previous clubs, and people like João Mario shown it for the national team, that they're really good players. So I don't think players should be put off or deterred, or clubs for that matter, based on the recent examples. But yeah, they are starting to rack up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. All right. Sam, is there anything you want to say about this?
No, I agreed with all the points.
All right. I think that's pretty much. It's difficult, in the end, to get a legit question because, or to try and sum it up into just one thing, because a lot of every case is a different case, but yeah. All right. With that said, let's move on now to the actual games. And I want to start with the one that I didn't watch, and Jamie didn't watch. So that's up to you, Sam. And again, apologies to all Porto fans, but yeah. Uh, Porto played Guimarães this weekend. They won 2-0. Abubakar and Suarez, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Scored the goals. Casillas was in goal. Ricardo, Felipe, Marcano, and Alex Telles across the back. Danilo, Oliver, Otavio, Corona, Suarez, and Abubakar. So 4-4-2. Sam, I believe this is your first go with this new Porto side. What are your thoughts on them?
You also missed out Andre being sent off I think in the 50th minute mark.
Yeah,
So
50th minute.
for a pretty
Good call.
disgusting challenge in my opinion. The studs up. It's always you'd never want to see that in a football game. So rightly sent off. I thought as much as people, especially Porto fans, have been talking about Abubakar being not a very good player, I think in this game, him and Suarez complemented each other really well. I think they flow off each other. Like I think what they expected to have with Andre Silva and Tiquinho is sort of happening with Abubakar and Suarez. Obviously, everyone knows about Tiquinho Suarez, and I think a lot of people rate him, but Abubakar last season was on loan at Besiktas, if I'm correct, and he had a very good season there. So I think, and a lot of Porto fans were skeptical in him coming into the team. There's also Marega as well, had a good season. Why are you laughing?
Because it's Marega. Anyway, sorry.
He did have a good season. You can't take away.
I know he did. I know he did. But Luka also had a good season with Estoril a few years back, and then he joined Porto, and then he was shit. So
yeah, I guess. But carrying on from that, the goals were good. I think they had good build-up play, and I think Porto dominated the game in a way. I'm not sure if any of you've seen the video on Felipe's goal line clearance, which was
yeah, I did. That was pretty
fantastic.
good.
Yeah.
But I do have to say that both goals, in my opinion, are completely avoidable. Abubakar does a great job in the first goal. Like, don't get me wrong, but it's a terrible pass.
A lot of goals are avoidable, but it's just being in the right place at the right time.
I know, but those two, to me, I mean, let's just face it. If it's a league game, those are just mistakes you can't make, right? That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not saying obviously every goal comes from a mistake, because for there to be a goal, there needs to be a mistake. I mean, 99% of times. But I mean that second goal though, the guy didn't even jump. The center back didn't even jump. I was like, what the hell? I mean, I don't know if you have the goal in your head, but I was watching it. I'm like, if Josué just jumps there, he gets the ball.
I think it's just because it's pre-season. I'm not that the player's not taking it seriously, but it's obviously Josué obviously has a key place as a centre back for Guimarães, so it's not like he's fighting for a place, if you know what I mean. But I think maybe it was also just a lack of judgment at the time as well. Also, I saw a lot of Porto fans complaining that the referee wasn't up to standard, and I agree with one thing, because the captain, who I believe was Marcano in that game, got a yellow card for talking to the ref. But the rules us can say that the captain can speak to the official to challenge the decision.
He can, yeah, I guess.
And literally, I think he said a couple of words and got a yellow card straight away. Obviously, I don't know what was said, but if he was just challenging the decision, I guess it was a pretty unjust yellow card.
Right, but when what's his face? When Sergio Conceição also says that the referee needs to be more, needs to let the play go on a bit more and not give cards for anything. I mean, André's red card is well deserved. So I mean, when you have a coach that's asking for a referee to not send him off, then I mean, you can't really care for much what they say about other cards. I think, yeah. If you get my point.
Yeah. So Porto, as much as they have made many signings, I think the partnership of Abubakar and Tiquinho is could be a potential dangerous one for the entire league.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope I've done a good job of reviewing your game, Porto fans.
I mean, that's the best they're gonna get. I mean, until we get either Kevin or Rich to come on, that's the best they're gonna get. Because to be honest, I tuned in at halftime and it was 2-0, and I was like, okay, can't be bothered. Just gonna switch. So, and James didn't watch it, so I think he did a good job. Anyway, let's move on to another game that I also didn't watch, but this one's more because it had implications related to Benfica. So Sporting beat Monaco 2-1. I believe Bruno Fernandes and Bas Dost scored the goals.
Yes, I believe.
So Patricio in goal, Piccini, Coates, Matthew, and Coentrão across the back with Gelson and Acunha on the wings, Bataglia and Bruno Fernandes in the midfield, Podence and Dust up front. And, Sam, take it away, boy.
Honestly, this was one of the most enjoyable games I've watched Sporting play. I think they played with such a good tempo and the passing was great. I literally didn't, for the first half, I didn't have a single problem wrong with what Sporting was doing. I thought Acuna, I'm not really sure how to pronounce the name, to be honest. I might just go with Marcos, to be honest.
Acuna, because of the end with the symbol on it, it's Acuna. Yeah.
Okay. So he played very well, in my opinion. And I think a lot of Sporting fans saw that he played very well. I think...
you need to explain me the JJ quote.
He compared him to Bruno Cesar, I believe.
I mean, the one that he said... Jamie, did you see the one? And I'm sorry to make you off on the... But this is just so weird. JJ said that Acuna wasn't a creative player. Did you see that? On the joke, they posted the news. I thought that was kind of weird.
No, I didn't see that because I've spoken to a few of my colleagues at work who cover the Argentine league, and they really sing his praises. Say he's a fantastic player. Yeah, I'd be surprised if that's not what I've heard about him.
I need to definitely look at it. Go on, Sam, and I'll talk about it in a moment.
Bruno Fernandes, who I think a lot of people have sung his praises ever since he moved. I think he's the perfect player to replace Adrian. He didn't put a foot wrong in that game, in my opinion. The way he passed the ball, the way he commands the midfield. He's not only just a great passer. I think he's a potential to be a leader as well, sort of like Adrian was, or still is until he leaves, which probably soon. Bastos again, always back to his scoring ways. Monaco as well. The video referee actually came in handy. I'm not sure if you saw, but
yeah.
They I can't remember what player scored it for Monaco, but it was
a Benfica player.
Lopez.
Yeah.
Ronnie Lopez. Yeah. Scored a fantastic volley, but Patricio said to the referee that he had players blocking his view, which the players were offside. The referee looked at it and he reversed the decision, much just
That's a great goal,
Bruno de Carvalho. Yeah, it was a very good goal, but it was offside. So, and I'm not sure if you saw it, the replay. Bruno de Carvalho was there laughing and rubbing his hands.
Nah, I don't even care. I know. Sorry.
It was very funny.
I'm sure it was to you.
And to a lot of Benfica fans on the timeline as well.
Can't wait for that to screw them over. Anyway, moving on.
Coentrão, he didn't have the best of games, but I think Acuna really helps Coentrão with his positioning. Just the way that they had I think build-up play. That's what I'm looking for. They had tremendous build-up play, just the 1-2s and the overlaps they both had. I think they really complement each other very well. But the thing is with Coentrão, George Jesus said this in an interview recently as well, that he's still not at full fitness and he needs to work on that before the season starts. And with the rumour of Jonathan Silva, apparently we rejected it from Boca Juniors.
Oh, okay. I was going to say officially signed a new deal, 45 million release clause.
Yeah, but I've also heard that we've rejected a bid from Boca Juniors recently.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that you've officially re-signed them.
Yeah, and I like Jonathan Silva, but I would prefer Coentrão to play just of the experience of the league, and everyone knows Coentrell's a fantastic player when fit. And let me just scroll down from my notes here.
Go ahead. If you ever want me to take over for the Acuna thing, I got the quote right here, and I can read it out.
Go on.
All right. So this is what JJ said, right? And I'm going to translate it so it's not word for word because it's in Portuguese. But he's a very strong player in dead ball situations, very competitive, and a team player. He's not very creative, but he's a strong player with a good collective sense, like for the team, for team sense, team spirit, I guess. And he's a very sound technical player. He works for the team. That's basically what he said. So do you agree with his statement, or do you add that he's actually a technical player and not?
I think he was a creative player. The crosses he was putting into the box, and for one thing, I think Sporting has lacked over the years is a good corner taker. In the Monaco game, he was whipping the balls into the box right near to Bastos, Coates. And I think that he is. I don't know why Georgie is saying he isn't creative, because he didn't create a lot of moves in that game.
All right.
And I've literally just got a few more points. I thought Coates was especially good in the defending side of things. I think he's massively improved over the last couple of seasons, and rightfully given the vice captain role, as I believe William Carvalho is. Adrian is the captain. I think Coates is the vice captain at the moment. And speaking of William, I jumped the gun on him there a bit. He played very well when he came on, and why? Why you got to sigh?
Because it's William.
But he played well.
He
played well. It doesn't matter what your thoughts about him. I'm just stating a fact.
Snails can't play well. But whatever.
Stating a fact that he played well. And he did play well when he came on. He dictated the game, just like Bruno Fernandes did in the first half. And with more of that performances, I would be glad to keep him.
Is that it?
Pretty much.
Okay, Jamie, did you get to watch this game or?
Not yet. No, I've got basically for the friendlies. I don't tend to watch them live, so I sort of got quite a big backlog of friendlies to watch. So I'll watch that Porto Guimarães game and Sporting Monaco. But I've seen Sporting's other games, and yeah, I think there's potential there. I agree that Bruno Fernandes looks like he's settled really quickly, and yeah, it's as it does look like Adrian's going to go. It probably he does seem to be sort of groomed for that number 8 position, so which would suggest that probably Adrian will go. Battaglia is a player I really like. Not sure whether he can, I'd be interested to see if he can make that step up, because I thought he was brilliant for Chavez last season. So, and again, he's being sort of adapted to a more defensive role, which I'm not sure how capable he is. It's a bit early days for that yet, but I think the team looked good. I think Dumbia's got the potential to be a good signing. He sort of seems like he's been largely inconsistent over the past few years, but he could be a good alternative to Alan Ruiz, who is one to definitely keep an eye on. I think Alan Ruiz, because he, really slow start last year, but was one of Sporting's best players in the last couple of months of the season. So, yeah, I think I think they've probably got a bit of fitness to work on still, but I think they look good. I think the squad's looking like it's got a decent amount of depth at the moment.
Right. I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. I don't know.
Just got one more thing, if you don't mind.
Of course.
In the friendly games, I thought Podence played really well, and there are rumours of him starting over Dumbia when the season starts. And I think I haven't, obviously Dumbi hasn't played that much, but from what I've seen for Podence in the preseason, he's played very well. What we expected from Ana Ruiz in the first couple of months where he joined, I think that's what we can expect from Daniel Podence. And obviously, there's that big argument that George Jesus doesn't like youth players for some reason. Obviously, he's learned out Ryan Gould and some others, but I think he I don't know why he seems to hate everyone apart from Podence. He seemed to play Podence quite late on.
Pisses me off. Sorry. Sorry. It's just that.
And I think Podence would be a welcome addition to the starting 11.
Of course, it's a welcome addition, but the fact that he's just like Bernardo Silva, and that's what pisses me off. They're the exact same type of players, and he just didn't care for one, and now he's playing.
Maybe because he's realised his mistake. That's maybe why he's playing Podence.
Sorry. My bad. What were you saying?
Did I cut out?
No, I cut out. I left.
Oh. I was saying about what's the name?
We were talking about
Podence.
Bernardo,
Maybe George Jesus has realised his mistake with Bernardo Silva, and he's trying to test out a player in Daniel Podence. Peter, where you gone? Okay, Peter's gone. Just that I take this opportunity for everyone listening. If you're a sporting fan, go follow us, SCP updates. Yeah, and we just got to 450 followers. So if you're a sporting fan, follow that page.
I am sorry, but I'm good. I'm back for good.
Okay.
All right. So he realized his mistake on Bernardo. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
All right. So that's it. That's we're going to talk about Podence, the fact he's been playing well, and is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Jamie, on this?
No. Well, no. I mean, I suppose an interesting thing to maybe pick up on would be something as simple as who do you think, if you can try and not be biased, who do you think is going to win the league next season? I mean, I know that might seem a really obvious question considering who I'm talking to, but
I mean, it's really no. You got a point. Because just yesterday I spent a couple hours talking to a friend of mine, a Porto fan, and we were trying to dissect the teams just for fun. And it's really difficult for us to figure out who's going to win the league because Porto have their struggling issues, overall as a team offensively. I mean, you have two strikers, but then that's about it, right? I mean, you can count on Rui Pedro to be, the greatest super sub ever. It's not feasible. And the lack of defensive midfielders besides Danilo. And then you look at Benfica, and obviously right back, center back, and goalkeeper come to mind. But if they can at least get two of those three players, they look like a very solid team again because the midfield forward, Benfica has been tremendous during their preseason games, and whenever they have a little bit of space, you can already see that 1-2 pass, and especially with Seferovic and Jonas looking very much like a very good partnership. They're pretty solid. And then you look at Sporting, and it's always the same old. Sporting made a lot of new additions. They're all good players, and by February, they're out of the title race. So, I mean, I can't peg a favorite right now. I mean, if I would have to say one, I'd probably say Sporting at this point. But it's so difficult because squads are probably going to change. I mean, I don't think Benfica is going to keep 4 top strikers. I don't think Porto is going to stay with their team as it is. I still think Ricardo Pereira is probably going to leave. I still think one of the strikers will likely leave. I don't know if Abubakar even stays. I'm not sure if Brahim is even going to stay. As for Sporting, I mean, are they going to lose anybody? I mean, it's a very big deal if they lose William and Adrian. So
Just to add to that, I just want
Yeah,
to give
go ahead.
my take on it quickly. It's just, for me, I'm confident in Sporting's title chances, not just because I'm a Sporting fan, but when you look at the terms of signings, Sporting assigned players that they needed in the positions that we needed. We needed a backup striker or even a second striker. We got Dumbia. We needed a few more centre backs because we struggled in that position. We got Andre Pinto and Mateu. We needed a left back. We got Fabio Coentrao, where it remains to be seen if he will be fit enough for the season in general. And obviously, Brian Ruiz, we need a left mid. We got in Acuna. So for me, that's why I'm confident in Sporting's chances. When you look at Benfica, they've signed youngsters, and you can say, so I don't even know the guy's name, the striker that you can pronounce, but I can't.
What?
The striker you signed.
Seferovic?
Him, and you got Why do they sign players with such weird names? The guy from Rio Ave, Kronovic.
Krovinovic. He's a really good player.
I was close.
I'm excited to see how he gets on. I think he's a very good talent.
But with those two players, the question is, do they start or do they sit on the bench? Much like everyone was excited to see Rafa from Braga to Benfica, and he didn't play that well because he was on the bench for a lot of the games. And with Porto, they've signed no one, but they've got rid of quite a few decent players. Andre Silva going. Ruben Neves didn't play a lot last season, but he left.
He's solid, yeah.
Jota as well. I thought he was a really good player for Porto last season.
Definitely a very good bench player.
Yeah, and who have they signed? No one. And they've, like you said, Ricardo Pereira is still probably going to leave. There's also a chance that Danilo leaves as well. So, in my
Another
opinion,
forward or so might leave, a winger or something.
And in my opinion, Sporting's the only team that have signed the players in their position. Obviously, there's still a month and a bit to the transfer window closes, but like Peter said, Benfica need a centre back and a goalkeeper. Porto need, I think, a lot of positions in depth wise, and maybe some in the starting 11. For me, Sporting have filled out everything they needed to fill. So.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm sorry to cut you off real quick. That I want to say is that the thing with Sporting is that you're always going to try and see how these new players are all going to gel, right? Because they're looking at last year's squad and this year's, the back four is completely different. So you have to see how the players are going to gel too. So I mean, they did make the right signings, but it's just the case if they're all going to work out, right? It's, for example, when you're watching the NBA draft, you look, oh, my team drafted these two players there, or three players, or four players, how many picks they have. But not all, they look like great picks, but not all of them.
But I think the difference between Sporting's this season transfers to last season, the players we got last season weren't exactly proven. Castaños hasn't scored until from even January 2016. Douglas isn't much of a proven centre back. You've got Mateu, who was quality at Valencia, obviously struggled at Barcelona, but we all know he can go. Coentrao as well. We all know he struggled at Real Madrid for fitness, but he is a proven player. Acuna as well, the best player in the Argentina league last summer. Who did Sporting sign last season that could compare to these players? You got Joel Campbell, maybe.
I agree with your point. I get what you're saying, but it's always a case of how they're going to gel in the end, in my opinion. Jamie, I cut you off. What were you going to say?
I can't remember, to be honest. No, I think I think you're right. The main thing we need to sort of revisit the question on the 31st of August, don't we? As ever, there's so many big names that may or may not depart. The outcome for Sporting in particular as well, the outcome of the Champions League playoff could have a lot to do with it. They might be able to attract a couple of maybe bigger names that they might not be able to have done before if they can make the group stage. So that potentially could be a factor. But I think I agree that Sporting has got a good amount of depth at the moment, but yeah, as good as some of the signings look, the Adrian and Williams' futures sort of need to be sorted out sooner rather than later. And I think only then, particularly Adrian, because Adrian's, I think, arguably been their best player over the past 2 years. I think, there's still a few too many question marks before we can make any kind of serious guess, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a good question, but there's so many variables that it makes it hard to guess. All right, I think that's it. on Sporting. So I think we move on to Benfica, unless there's anything that you guys want to say.
Just about
I think.
the loans.
Oh yeah. What? Sorry. What were you saying?
So Ryan Gore got loaned to
Right.
Avs for the
Exactly.
season.
Mm-hmm.
Just that. Mateus Pereira got his contract extended with a 60 million release clause, I believe. It
Yeah.
might have been 70, but last year I think it was 60. And finally, George Jesus' birthday was yesterday. So happy birthday to
And
George Jesus.
Leonardo Ruiz got loaned
Oh,
out to
yeah,
Boa
got him. He
Vista,
got
and
loaned out to Boavista.
a new deal for Jonathan Silva, but not too much to discuss here. All right, so let's move on to two Benfica games that we got, and I'll try and do them as fast as it was relatively fast. But before I go to Jamie, did you watch any of these two? I forgot. I don't know if I asked you or not.
No, I haven't. I haven't seen any of Benfica in pre-season yet at all. So
Okay, you need to
only from what
do
I've
your
read.
homework.
Yeah.
All right. I think I pretty much got this covered. Don't worry about it. All right. So Benfica Betis. Benfica beat Betis 2-1. Seferovic scored twice. Huh? Júlio César in goal, Pedro Pereira, Luizão Jardel, and Hermes across the back. Feza, Filipe Augusto, Servi, Rafa, Seferovic, and Jonas were the starting lineup. Pedro Pereira again did not look very good. Buta was much better when he came on in the second half. Luizão looked okay. I mean, all of his issues, related to fitness and anything, but he did okay. Jardel, I'm really glad that he continues to play. He's always going to be the number 2 center back next to Luizão. He's going to keep improving that fitness. Adams is just a guy at this point. I also think that, but he could be proved to be solid backup after he goes out on loan and continues to play consistently. Feza is obviously the beast that we know. Filipe Augusto didn't do too much, but I still like him. I think he's a very good player, at least as a bench player. I know a lot of people don't like him, but I mean, there's a lot of people that didn't like William Ring either, and I think he was one of the best midfielders Benfica had. Incredibly underrated. Servi and Rafa on the wings. Servi didn't do too much in this game, but he's always a very interesting player because he looks off, but he's actually there and he contributes a lot on defense. So not only his offense, but also his defense is very important for Benfica. Rafa had some very good plays, but again, no goals. But he's starting to pick up the pace again. But I also think that he needs to play in the middle of the field because I think that suits him much better. And Seferovic and Jonas just look like two guys that really know each other at this point really, really well. It reminds me a lot of Lima and Jonas a couple of years ago. And they look like a very good duo. So I think Seferovic was a massive hit for Benfica, especially on a free, and I think he's going to be a terrific player. But I mean, there's not much to it. Benfica defended a lot in the last 15 minutes or so, try and hold on for the win, which I thought was quite interesting and good because you also want to have those tests, where you're going to see how you can defend when you have the lead. So I thought that was interesting. So for the second game, if you could play the whole City, they lost by a really good goal by a guy whose name I can't remember. I had a weird name, but the goal was really, really good. Júlio César getting goal, Buta, Luizão, Lisandro, and Eliseu across the back. So a little bit different lineup, but Buta played really well, and I think he should start, to be honest with you guys. I want to see what he can do in the Emirates Cup against the stiffer competition. Luizão and Lisandro. So Luizão playing a little bit more. Lisandro, do I even have to get on Lisandro? He's bad. That's it. Eliseu played good 45 minutes and then just got completely demolished because he was too tired. But he ended up having a good game. Samaris and André Horta didn't gel too well. João Carvalho didn't have a good game. Carrilho didn't have a good game. Mitroglou didn't have a good game. And Diogo Salles didn't have a good game. It didn't help at all that these were the players in the team. And Benfica just gave away a first half, in my opinion. I know some people apparently liked it, but I didn't. And the moment that whole city scores their goal, and Jonas, Seferovic, Zivkovic, Krian come on, and Filipe Augusto as well, it's a whole different team. It cannot even. The difference is just ridiculous. Zivkovic had a very, very second half, very good second half. A lot of good crosses. His build up play is really good. Even Willock had a very good second half. His crosses are really, really neat and very, very good. And Krian just holds that midfield so well. He's such a good number 8. I think he's going to be a very good box to box midfielder. And to be honest with you guys, I think he's surpassed Andre Horta at this point because he looks that much better of a player. I also think that Andre Horta is never a number 8. I think he's more of a deep playing midfielder, but that's besides the point. But yeah, Krian looks very, very good. Filipe Augusto did a good job as a holding midfielder. And Jonathan Seferovic just had a bunch of chances, but I mean, the ball just wouldn't go in. Seferovic hit the post. He had a shot deflected when he was, like a meter away from goal. Jonas had a very good shot that was saved. It was completely different, and Benfica could probably won that game by 4-1. It would have been fair. But in the end, it's preseason, and I just want to end it on this. I thought it was quite surprising that I went to stalk Sporting's fans' opinions, and I thought it was interesting that some of them were complaining that JJ played a very similar side every single game. And then I looked at Benfica's mentions, and I thought it was quite funny that all Benfica fans were saying, why is Rui Vitória playing different lineups every single game? So I just thought that those two fans have completely different ideas of preseason. While Sporting fans want to see all the players play and changes in the squad, Benfica fans want to see a solid starting 11 without that many changes. And I thought that was quite interesting. Pointing that out. Do you guys have any idea why? Just gonna ask you, what do you guys think about that? Like, why do you think that some Sporting fans want to see all the players play, and while Benfica fans want to see a more stable starting 11?
Yeah, interesting question. I'm not. I guess. Sporting. Sporting got so many players returning from loan, and Benfica do as well, but I guess maybe Sporting and Jesus maybe feels a little bit more under pressure to show the fans some of the younger players. I'm not really sure. They seem to have a slightly different attitude towards it, but again, going back to someone like Uri Medeiros, I think there's a bit. It almost feels like there's a bit of pressure from the fans. They really, really want to see him get given a chance now, having sort of proved himself sort of really well over the past few years with various loan spells. But yeah, I can't really explain why they sort of differ on that.
I know, and I thought it was really interesting because, when Sam showed me the lineups last week, he sent them all on tweets, and I was looking at the Marseille one, and you guys can go back and see it. A lot of Sporting fans are like, why is this dude not messing with the team? Why are we seeing the same back four every single game? And then when I was looking at the whole City game, the squad and the lineup, everybody was like, why is Rui Vitória playing all these new guys? Why doesn't he play a stable starting 11? I just thought, interesting. I just thought it was interesting that there's two completely different point of views from these two fans. Sam, do you have any type of idea or explanation to this?
I guess maybe because more starting 11 players, the players that will come into start 11 than Benfica has, and maybe just because the reason Benfica won the league last year, and so they're expecting to see the similar team of that caliber, but with Sporting obviously finished third, that there is room to improve for us, whereas Benfica could literally, bar the people that are left, can just put the same starting 11 out. But even those two options aren't really certain. But for me, I think it's just because Sporting have signed so many players, and the players we had last season, especially the ones out on loan, were good enough to start for Sporting in general. Whereas Benfica had a solid start 11. You couldn't really say, maybe apart from Salvia, that there were players more deserving of the places in Benfica starting 11.
Mm-hmm. All right. I want to also just mention that Benfica signed Keithan Parks, finally, because I spoke about this on the pod. I think Sam remembers about the whole thing, the Brazilian Benfica incident where the president wanted to sell him to Portimonense. Well, in the end, he ended up joining Benfica. So good for him. So Benfica has got an American playing for the team. So all you Americans have now a new reason to join Glorioso. So there you go. And I'm just gonna go quickly check, and I think we got a couple of questions, and I think we'll wrap it up unless you guys have anything to say about, Benfica, Porto, Sporting. Anything you guys have got to say before I get questions?
Not for me.
No.
All right. So Steph asked us, what do you guys think about Matheus Pereira loan to Chaves and goal to Aves? I'll go with the gold to Aves for Sam and Matheus Pereira to Chaves for Jamie.
Just on both, really. I think they're both good deals for the players, especially Ryan Gould. Ryan Gould, I think he was starting to come into his own until he got recalled after that whole argument thing. And I think people have expected more of Ryan Gould since he's joined Sporting. He hasn't really lived up to that potential, where people have been blaming the coaching. But if Ryan Gould doesn't show the promise to start 11, especially with people like Adrian in the midfield, it's hard to replace, to take someone's spot like that. So hopefully Gould goes out on loan to us and really impresses, because I think every Sporting fan wants to see him impress. And if not, maybe he needs to be sold.
Right, Jamie.
Yeah, I think with regards to Matheus Pereira, I'm a big fan of his. I think he's a really good player, and yeah, he needs a loan, and I think Chaves is a really good place for him. I think it could hopefully follow a similar blueprint to someone like Fabio Martins, who was brilliant for Chaves last season. Managed to sort of prove himself, and looks like he's going to get a good role with Braga this year. So Chaves look a little bit light in those kind of wing positions this season too. So I could really see him becoming a key player, and I'll mention him again. Follow the Yuri Medeiros kind of path, because I think that's what Mateus needs. He kept sort of dropping in and out of the team last season, sort of dropping down to the B team and then back in, and then there was that bizarre game against Porto where Jesus just threw him in, sort of almost out of nowhere, and yeah, it was really really hard on Mateus, because it's not his fault. He wasn't up to speed. He was sort of playing for the B team, and then sort of got this random start for the seniors. But yeah, he's got bags of potential. So I'm looking forward to seeing him playing there. I think yeah, like Gold. I'd say the only difference with Gold is, as much as I'm a big fan of his too, I hope he gets. I think he might find it a little trickier than Mateus to initially get in, just because of how much depth there is at Avs. But talent-wise, yeah, he's got the potential to be a starter for them, and he's still got a few more years on his Sporting deal. So if he has a good season, then I why not? I think he could work out well, but back at Sporting.
Mm-hmm. All right, and I think that was pretty much all the questions. We didn't get anything else. So I'd like to thank Jamie for coming on today. It was pretty cool. I think he did really well as well. So enjoyed their insight, and they'll definitely need to bring you on later on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Yeah, it was good to chat. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Sam, is there anything you'd like to tell, Jamie, you'd like to say to our fans as well? Little
From a
absence.
fellow Englishman, I felt like you handled yourself really well. You didn't sound nervous or anything, so props to you.
No, thanks very
And
much. Appreciate
like
it.
Peter said, I enjoyed your insight as well.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Cheers.
Yeah, no problem. So, we'll be back next week. With whom I have no idea. It could be a lineup with me, Steph, and maybe Rich. I don't know if Zach's gonna be there, but we'll be back next week. Don't worry about it. We're going to preview the Supertaça, and in the week after that, we're going to be reviewing the Supertaça and the start of the season, because I believe the season starts on a Wednesday as well. So that's interesting. But anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you, Jamie, for joining us.
Thanks
And
again.
yeah, bye bye.
Bye.